I'm Shawn Bland at the Art Center of Wilmington Island. We are so glad to offer a way to stay connected and continue creating art. Check out our new list of art at home kits for both kids and adults, available for curbside pickup. Keep visiting our Facebook page and website to see the latest options. We will post them as quickly as we can make them. Each kit contains everything you need to complete a beautiful painting at home: a pre-sketched canvas, an inspiration picture, paint, brushes, and a palette, and a link to a tutorial to follow along. All you will need to provide is paper towels and a rinse cup for your brushes. Now that you have supplies, follow our step-by-step tutorial. Time to paint. So today our palette is going to be limited to a few colors that we can use to paint our Seagull with. We have white, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, and alizarin red to start our basic palette. So we're going to use a simple round brush. It's an oversized one so that we can create a big space in our background and cover a lot of space at one time. So I'm going to dip my brush in the water first, tap it dry, and then I'm going to go start picking up some of these colors. The first thing I want to do is load my brush with white and move it over to my mixing palette. And then I'm going to add a few colors with my brush. I'm just going to go through, because I have so many different colors in my water, I'm going to go through and get burnt umber and mix a little bit of that over on my palette. I'm going to take ultramarine blue over. I'm going to take yellow ochre over. And now that I have those colors mixed up in my brush, I'm going to load it with white, and then I'm going to start taking it on my painting over on the canvas across the background part of where the water is at the very top of the space. And you can see with all three of those colors on my brush, it makes a beautiful background space for that water, because each one of those colors just come out separately as I begin to do a brush stroke that goes about 2 or 3 inches and continues over and over again until we get all of our water actually painted. When we get to the Seagull, we're actually just going to pick up just a little bit and make sure that we can still see where our line is for our bird, and then we're just going to keep going. So each one of these strokes will be horizontal, and so the water will have very little movement in it. But as you can see, because I have all three of the colors mixed in on my brush, that it looks streaky, and it really begins to make the water look like that it is actually right behind the bird. And you can see the yellow ochre is a really good color to put in there to make the water look very natural looking. And then of course the burnt sienna makes it look a little bit darker so that it can look like it is closer to the bottom of the water. You can see through the water a good bit because he's very close to the seashore. So you can tell that I'm overpainting the lines that you have that are pre-sketched on your kit. So it's real easy if you overpaint the bird, because you can still see the lines. If you are making a thin coverage, if you make it thick, it's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. You can always just draw your bird right over where the paint covers. So that's certainly not a problem. I don't want you to feel like that you have to go in and go around the outline of the bird. But if you like doing that, you certainly can. That's an option for you. You've got this round brush, so it makes it real easy for you to go right along the edges. Now, as you begin to think about the colors that you want to use more of for your painting, In some places, if you want to see a little bit more of the beach, you could certainly put more of the golden color in. That's the yellow ochre. So you could put a lot of that in, like towards where his legs and feet begin to meet the rock. And as you can see, because we have those feet outlined in the orange-ish brown color, it's real easy for us just to lightly paint over them, and then you can still see their placement. But if you happen to go a little heavy-handed and cover them up, you'll know exactly where they are looking at your inspiration picture. So you just make those kinds of decisions as you're painting as to how careful you want to be as you move around your space. But I used the three colors that I introduced first, the white and the ultramarine blue, and then just a little bit of the burnt umber to give it a real natural look, because that's what our water in this area looks like. It's not a brilliant aqua green kind of color. So we have these colors that we're working with in this area. But if you want to change it, make it brighter, you certainly can. I'm beginning to come on down with a little bit more of the water that's washing up on the rocky area, adding more of the blue and the brown together to make it a little bit darker in this area. So as soon as I use those horizontal strokes going across, you can tell that the water's just coming right up into that area, because we've got this darker color that's anchoring the land, the beach area in, and how and it gives it depth, so that's always a good thing for your painting to have. So you can tweak it any way you want, adding more of the waves, and maybe even you might want to add some of the white foamy things that you see coming up into the water. Those are easy to do just by taking your brush and dipping it in the white paint and just go in. And if you just sort of tap, 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 you can see you can get a look of the water sort of rolling over. So you can do that if you want to. If you do them in the background, I would make sure that you do them a lot thinner and smaller, so that they do look natural and that they look like they're far away. The ones in the background you shouldn't see quite as much as you do the ones that are in the foreground, or the ones that are closer up towards the front. But literally it's just using the round brush and just tapping it. So you're literally making the flow over with the white crest just pop right over the top, just pop, pat, just dab, dab, and then tap, tap, and then you'll see how easy it is to make those. Okay, now to make it look like that they're really just rolling up and curling under, I would suggest that you use the dark brown and the blue together and go up underneath it just a little bit, right under where you have the white tops, and put a little bit of the blue, a little bit darker, right up underneath it. So you can see with the brush, I'm just going, because we have the round brush, it's really easy to go right up under those areas and just almost push that dark color of the water right up underneath them. So you can see how easy it is to play with the water when you're building those caps, as long as you have that darker color up underneath and the white coming right on the top, the waves will just roll right over. So that's a new fun technique that I hope you enjoy playing with. So now that I have my water done, I'm going to make the rocks so that the seagull will have something to stand on. I don't even have to wash my brush. I can just take the burnt umber and mix the yellow ochre with it, and I can start painting that space. Again, I'm still using the round brush, and I'm just picking up enough of the brown and the yellow ochre that when I mix that together, it looks rocky. And so you can add white on this right hand side to make it look a little bit lighter, and you can make sure you keep it darker on one side, and then you'll have it made when it comes to the rock looking like a round form, because it actually has the dark on one side and light on the other to show that the light is coming in. And then you can go back, and if you want more of the white hitting up against the rocks, you can just pick up a little bit more white on your brush and just dot, 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 tap, 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 and you can see the water just comes right over the top. And so there you are. You have a rock set up, and it is in the water. So now we're going to wipe your paint off your brush, and the best way to do that so that you don't get your water too dirty too quick is just wipe it off inside a paper towel, and keep your paper towel nice and clean, and then you're ready to go and rinse. If you've got a brush tub, you just want to rinse it back and forth. Just agitate that brush until all the pigments fall to the bottom, and then you just tap your brush dry and go over, and you can just put it on the paper towel just enough to pick up the water, so you're not carrying too much of the water when you go to start your painting. Now you've got a lot of detail lines over here on your seagull that you're going to use to help you form his shape and to make it look like the bird is actually standing in that space. So to start that, we're going to make the color of his body actually first, and we're going to do that with a gray, and then we'll build the light feathers right on top of it. So I'm going to take blue and brown and that little bit of alizarin crimson, that's your red color, and mix that together. And if I mix all three of those colors in just about equal amounts, I can make a gray. And that is the gray that I'm going to use to come in and actually paint this section of the bird. I'm going to start with that back space right on the back of his head, so that I can show that it is separate from his neck. And that's the main thing, is just forming the bird so that you can see that he has different sections. He's not flat, he's very round. So we want that shade to be darker. So we're just sort of making it a purpley grayish blue color, so you can figure out which one you like the best. It can go a little more blue, or it can go a little more red, depending on which one you like. And if you add more blue in, of course, it's going to be bluer. And if you add more red in, it'll be redder. But either way, it's going to be a purpley gray color that suits the bird just fine. And then you're going to come in and you're going to add white to your brush with the color that you already have. And you're going to come down and you're going to start making the feathers come right up his back. But do it while it's wet so you can have a nice blend. If you wait till it's dry, then the color doesn't blend. It just lays on the top of it, and it doesn't look as natural looking. So as soon as you get that build in, take your white just on the very tip of your brush. You don't have to carry much of it, but carry just enough so that you can round out just on the tip. Now what you want to do here is, of course, you'll use the white, you'll paint the top of his head, and then as you paint that, you'll take the white and blend it right down into that color that you have just laid in to form his shape, and that's the grayish color. But if you'll do that pretty quick while the bird is wet with the acrylic, then it's real easy for you to have a good blend. You'll have your shape set up, but then the feathers look very natural looking. What we want to do now is continue down his chest area, and we're going to pretty much repeat the same thing that we did up here in this space, and now we're going to do it up underneath his feathers here in this area. We're going to put in a grayish color. It can be a little more on the blue side if you want, like right up underneath his wing. But then immediately we're going to pick up the white and we're going to start going and putting the feathers. They're going to, it's easy with this round brush just to go in and lay the feathers coming up from the bottom up right over the area that you just blocked in with your darker grayish color. So if you'll just come in and you're just going to make feathers. Every time you load your brush and go over and pull a brush stroke, you're putting down the paintbrush and then you're just letting it go with a little bit of pressure as you create the top part of the feather where it's connected to the rest of the feathers. So it's real easy once you get that little thing going with the feel of the feathers. Now these are up underneath the wings, so that's why we wanted to put this darker color in that area first. Then we're gonna actually start on the tail feather of the bird. We're gonna pick up the dark blue. We're gonna add the brown in it. We're going to add a little bit of white, so this is a darker gray that we're going to use back in this area. So we're going to actually use the round part of the brush to go in, and if we start right up under this area and make it darker, I'm just almost using a zigzag motion to go right up underneath and lay in where the darkest part is, and then it runs right into the part that we just completed. So we're going to make it in such a way that we are layering it and putting the feathers that are underneath first, and then we layer the new feathers on top. I'm going to go over and dip the brush in the water, and then I'm going to go over to the palette and I'm going to roll the water into the paint so that I keep a tip on my brush that I can use to make the tips of the feathers. And they're not really detailed. This isn't, you know, a very detailed painting, but we just want the feathers to be uneven on the edges, and the easiest way to make it uneven is to just go in and just barely touch the canvas, just barely. And you can see every time I draw or paint in there that I'm creating the look of another feather. We're gonna then go in and we'll put the wider or lighter feathers in this area. So you can see how we've got a space that's coming here and here, and then you can see that all this is going to be darker. So I can lay in those darker spaces since I already have the dark gray on my brush. I can lay those in, and then it'll be real easy to put the light feathers right on top of it. Putting the dark up underneath allows you to be able to see the light feathers so much easier. So this is the darker gray color. It does have brown and blue in it and a little bit of white, so it's not too dark. And I'm just going in and making areas so that I can use the drawing to help me set up where the different feathers come into play. And then I'm able to, with ease, now go in, add white to my brush. Just leave the color on there. You don't even have to wash your brush. Just leave the paint on the brush and just pick up a little white on the tip of the brush, just a little, and then begin laying that white right over on the area where you see that his wing is, and you just make one feather at a time until all the canvas is covered. Then you can play in it and just really build and give him some character, depending on, you know, what you want your individual bird to look like. But I just keep adding white and going over and building feathers. I've looked at a lot of these seagulls, and of course they all look a little bit different. so yours can certainly be unique. But as long as you use this technique to build those feathers with the dark up underneath and then laying the white on top, and do it pretty quick, pretty fast while it's wet so that you can get that look of it being really blended in. Then if you want to go back and do more detail, like right now I'm putting a little bit of the white on the colors down at the bottom, just so he all blends together very nicely. Okay, so that pretty much finishes the bird part for the feathers. And so now we're going to use this part of the brush. We're going to wash it. We're going to dip it in the water. And then we're going to make his legs. We're going to use the red in your kit and the yellow to make an orange. You can also add the yellow ochre into it to make it more of a natural color. And so if you do that just using the tip of the brush, you'll want to go in and you'll want to choke up on the brush. Everything else has been pretty loose, but the legs are very small. So to be able to get that with your round brush, what you want to do is choke up on the brush and then go over, and literally you're going to make yourself a leg by one stroke going right down the center of the space that you can see you're drawing. So once you make that leg, then to make it look like it is round, you're going to add a darker brown to the paint color that you've mixed, and you're going to use the darker color on the left side, just ever so slightly, put a little bit of the dark brown, and then you're going to leave it lighter on the front side, and that way it certainly looks like the sun is coming in over here on this side where we have it lighter. You could also take and add the detail for the nails in, just a small little gesture of a foot and a nail laying right on the rock would be great. But you can tell it's just a little mark. I use the dark first to set it up so it's anchored on the ground. And now I can come back with the yellow and the orange. I could even put some white on it if I really want it to stand out and look like that he is right there on the rock with the sun shining in if I want to. So now I'm ready to work on his eyes and beak. And so what I'll do first is go in, just as I was doing on the legs, I'm going to go in with the brush and make it darker up on the bottom side. So I'm choking up on my brush so that I really have control of it, and I'm putting in the dark brown first, and I'm doing that with the brown and yellow ochre. And on the top, we're going to add a little bit more of the orangey color in with the yellow and the red mixed together. So I'll come right in and lighten that up and orange it up just a little bit. And once again, I've looked at a lot of these Seagull pictures, and they all have a little bit different color, but on the yellow side. So I went and gave it a little bit of white on the top part, just to make it a little bit lighter on the top than it is on the bottom. And that'll certainly show overlap, and then it'll give it a little definition too, with the separation between the two. If you want to put a little bit more of an edge on it or define it, a little bit of the dark color right in the corner, almost like you're making a V shape, would really work out pretty good. Then you're ready for the eye, and that's just a tiny little speck of a dark color. You could use brown and blue really by itself, so I'm going to mix both of those. So this is just brown and blue, and I'm giving him a little dot. And then once you get the little circle made in, this is a round brush, so it's real easy to get that shape. You could come back, and if you want to give it a little bit more detail, you could come in on the front side and give it a little shape that looks almost like a comma on the top, just to set the eye in place. And then you could wipe your brush off and or wash it if you'd rather do that, depending on how much paint you have on your brush. If you have a lot of black, then you'll have to wash, but you just need just a little bit of the white paint to go in. And right on the top part of the eye, you can give him a little white comma shape that shows that he's out in the sun and that he has that light reflected right off of his eye. And so then you can see you have your seagull painted. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this demonstration. I would like for you to join us again as we paint more pictures on our project. But remember, this just gets you started, and it's really fun for you to be creative and come in and play and add just what you want to your painting. But I've enjoyed teaching this class today. And now that you finished your project, we want to see your masterpiece. Please send us a picture either at our Gmail, Art Center of Wilmington Island @gmail.com, or you can post it on our Facebook page. Keep visiting our Facebook page and website to see the latest Art at Home kits. Thank you so much for supporting your neighborhood art studio.